It wasn't something I planned, ending up without a home, but it crept up on me the same way cold weather creeps up on a dying animal. Slow, harsh, and impossible to stop. One rough month turned into another. The rent kept piling up, and before I knew it, I was living out of a car that was never meant for sleeping in. Not one of those Instagram vans with wood paneling and rooftop solar. No, mine was an old 2005 Honda Civic with a busted windshield, a drooping ceiling liner, and a heater that only worked if you banged the dash just right. It barely counted as shelter, more like a rolling closet than any kind of home. But it kept most of the rain off and didn't draw attention. And that was the key. I wasn't trying to be seen. I just needed to get by. I studied YouTube videos on stealth camping like they were survival guides, learned how to cover windows, where to park without getting ticketed or towed, how to stay warm without burning yourself. I picked it up quickly because I didn't have the luxury of time. You slip up out there even once and it could be the end. So I built a routine. Hid out behind supermarkets, parked near abandoned lots, found quiet patches beneath highway bridges, or tucked into wooded corridors on the edges of town. You start to recognize what makes a good spot: quiet, safe, and out of sight. That's the magic combo. Somewhere no one looks. Somewhere even the cops forget exists. The city I landed in wasn't home. I barely knew it, to be honest. Just a place I passed through years ago and remembered it having mild winters. I stuck around because I didn't have any better options. I knew a few faces. Some guys from shelters, folks who knew where to get a cup of free coffee or a dry pair of socks. But mostly it was just me. I wasn't in touch with family, and I won't get into the reasons why. Every day looked the same. Scout, scavenge, survive. One day, a man I didn't know handed me a hammock, just walked past me, smiled and said, "Looks like you could probably use this more than I can." Then he kept going. It was cheap, faded from sun and smelled faintly like old weed. But it changed my whole world. For the first time in what felt like forever, I had a way to sleep off the ground. And for a few hours, it actually felt like maybe things were shifting for the better. That hammock made a bigger difference than I could have imagined. You don't think something so basic could be so meaningful. But after months of curling into the front seat of a Civic with your knees in your chest and a damp hoodie pulled over your head, anything that lets you lie flat feels like luxury. I carried it around for a couple of days before finding the right spot. You can't just hang a hammock anywhere. You need trees, privacy, a place no one goes when the sun drops. I had this one favorite area, a thin green belt behind a Lowe's on the northeast edge of town. It didn't look like much on a map, but if you followed the fence down past a storm drain, there was a break in the brush that opened into a forgotten little strip of woods. No signs, no cameras, no walking paths. Just overgrowth, a handful of sycamores, and the best part, quiet. That kind of silence that only comes from being completely invisible. That night, I tied the hammock between two trees that lined up perfectly. Straps pulled tight just like I'd seen online. I loaded my blanket and old pillows into a plastic storage bag I'd been hauling around and stashed them under the hammock, just in case it rained. I even sprayed the fabric with this cheap linen spray from a discount store. It smelled like fresh laundry, like something close to home. When I laid down, the material hugged my back, and I swear, I nearly cried. For the first time in months, I felt like a person again. Not a stat, not some ghost drifting by, just a man with somewhere to sleep. The sky above was dark and full of stars. And for once, I didn't fall asleep with one hand clutched around a knife or my ears tuned to every rustle in the night. I don't know what time it was when I heard that sound. 1 second, I was floating half asleep, not dreaming of anything in particular, just drifting. The next moment, the air tore open with the sharpest, most piercing wail I've ever heard. It wasn't a fire truck or police siren. This one was different, closer, shriller. It was so loud, I felt it in my teeth. I bolted up, heart pounding. In my panic, my foot got caught in the edge of the hammock and I flipped out, hitting the uneven ground hard. Something in my lower back just gave way, like someone snapped a light inside me. My body froze up and I let out a raw, broken scream. I tried to move, crawl even, but pain shot through me every time I twitched. I ended up flat on my side, mouth wide open, gasping like a fish out of water. That's when I heard the growls. Not one, not two, full pack. At first, it sounded far away, like it was coming from deep in the trees. Then I caught the sound of snapping twigs and heavy paws thudding the dirt. The barks were so sharp, they cut through the night like gunfire. They were coming straight at me. That siren must have set them off too. Couldn't stand, couldn't even roll over. I could only turn my head in time to see dark shapes burst through the trees, flashes of teeth, glassy eyes catching the moonlight. 4 of them, maybe 5, all mutts, skinny, ragged things. One looked like a pit mix. Another was tall and bony, ribs showing through its fur and its eyes bulging. The others, just strays, matted, bleeding, hungry. They stopped for half a second when they spotted me, like they were trying to figure out what I was. Then one of them let out this guttural bark, and it was like a gun going off. They all lunged. I screamed, flailing, trying to fight, but I couldn't move right. My back was locked up and I was still tangled in the damn strap. One clamped down on my ankle, teeth straight through flesh. It shook its head like it wanted to rip the muscle free. Another jumped and bit into my side, teeth slicing through shirt and skin. A third latched onto my wrist and bit so deep I heard the bone crunch. Felt endless, just a blur of pain and panic. I remember the fabric ripping, the snarls, the wet sound of skin tearing. I tried to scream again but choked on it. One grabbed my hand and wouldn't let go. I saw the blood spray. I swung at it with my other fist, but it barely flinched. Then the worst one. It came from behind, bit down into the back of my neck, and pulled. Something tore. Not just skin, something deeper. I honestly thought I was dying, and for a second I wanted to. Then suddenly I heard shouting. "Hey, get off him!" Flashlights, running, crashing through branches. Some guy throwing something heavy. The dogs hesitated. One growled, refusing to back down. Another yelped and took off. Then all of them were gone, back into the woods like ghosts. I lay there bleeding, barely able to breathe. My vision was blurred. My left eye was swelling shut. Couldn't move my right hand. My leg was on fire. Then someone kneeled beside me, shining a light in my face and yelling for someone to call 911. He asked my name. I didn't answer. I just kept whispering, "Don't let them come back. Don't let them come back." Turns out the man had been walking his dog on the other side of the greenbelt. Heard me screaming, almost didn't come. Thought it was just teens or someone yelling at a passing train. But something didn't sit right with him. He followed the sounds with his flashlight. Thank God he did. By the time the ambulance arrived, I was in full shock. They loaded me up fast. I remember the metal gurney's cold surface, the ambulance doors slamming, and then the sirens. I passed out before we reached the ER. Woke up hooked to tubes and wires, bandaged from head to toe, barely able to move. I lost 2 fingers, one from the wrist that got mangled, the other from the hand that dog wouldn't let go of. My back was sprained, my ribs cracked. Flesh was torn right down to the bone in 3 spots. The surgeon said if they'd gotten to me 15 minutes later, I would have bled out. Cops took my statement, asked where the dogs had gone. I didn't know. They were just gone. They searched the woods, laid out traps. I don't know if they ever found them. No collars, no tags, no other witnesses except the guy who saved me. And even he only saw shadows. I spent nearly 3 weeks in that hospital. The bill was more than I'd make in a year, but I didn't have to pay it. That same guy and his wife started a GoFundMe, told people my story, shared photos. People donated, a lot of them, enough that when I left that hospital, I didn't go back to a Civic. I went to a motel room, paid up for 2 whole months. Now I've got a small apartment, just a studio, but it's got heat, hot water, and a door with a working lock. I don't sleep outside anymore. I stay far away from woods, and I don't sleep in silence. I keep a fan running at night, white noise to block out the sounds I still hear in my dreams. The teeth, the growls, that awful siren. That hammock gave me one peaceful night, but I paid for it with blood. Hey folks, I've been tuning into Booze and Booze for about a year now, and I just wanted to say thanks. You've helped me get through a lot of long, dark nights. I used to work overnight shifts for a small-town police department in central Ohio. I won't say exactly which one, but it's one of those odd little slices of suburbia sitting right next to some real backwoods. Most nights were dead quiet, the kind of quiet that lets your mind start unraveling if you don't have something playing in your ears. Your show helped keep me grounded more than a few times, so I figured maybe I'd give something back. I don't really have some major story to send in. No killers hiding in plain sight or weird creatures creeping around. Just one strange, sad, and disturbing case from a couple years ago. And honestly, there are times I still question whether it really even happened. It began with a hit and run at a medium-sized intersection just outside a neighborhood. The sort of spot where folks tend to blow through the light because they assume nobody's watching. This time, though, someone got hit. A person on foot got slammed by a silver crossover going well over 85 miles an hour. Witnesses said the vehicle didn't even slow down, just tore through and vanished into one of the nearby developments like it was in a rush. The victim pulled through barely. Cracked ribs, shattered thigh bone, punctured lung. While fire and EMS handled the scene, we started doing a sweep of the area. That's when the night took a strange turn, out near the canal, where the real trouble was waiting. Roughly 45 minutes into canvassing, one of our guys spotted what looked like a match. A silver SUV sitting in a gravel turnout by the water. The front end was smashed in, expired tags, and nobody else in sight. But you could tell someone had been staying there. Trash was scattered along the woods, some tarps pinned to trees, a pile of old tuna cans, and a crude fire ring filled with bones. Hopefully chicken. Definitely the kind of setup you'd find in the kinds of places where forgotten people tend to end up. We pulled up slowly. For patrol units total. No lights, no sirens. One of those moments where you don't want to spook anyone but also can't afford to relax. Our dispatcher ran the tags. Not reported stolen, just expired and no listed address. We surrounded the SUV and found a woman in the driver's seat, slouched over, cradling something that looked like a cat wrapped in a blanket. She didn't respond much when we lit up the inside with flashlights. Just blinked slowly and rolled the window down like she'd been expecting us. We asked her to step out of the vehicle. She said she couldn't, told us the cats would escape. I remember her saying that word for word. Her tone was soft, almost kind. Like she was sorry about a mess she didn't know how to clean up. If I open the door, my babies will run off. We didn't see any weapons. The SUV was jammed full of stuff, blankets, wrappers, cat crates, empty bottles, who knows what else. After some back and forth, two of us went in to make contact. I opened her door and asked her again to come out. She smiled and said, "Only if you plan to marry me." I asked her what she meant. She giggled and brushed her fingers along my sleeve. We got her down without a fight, but it wasn't exactly easy. She kept trying to hold our hands. Asked my partner if he wanted to have children with her out in the woods. Kept mumbling about radio waves and angel cats. It was obvious she was in a serious mental break. We cuffed her, got her in the back of a cruiser, and started checking out the area more thoroughly. That's when things really turned bad. Inside the SUV, it was a complete biohazard. Cat litter all over, on the seats, the floor, even on the dashboard, like it had been dumped everywhere. Feces smeared into the fabric. The smell was horrific, almost acidic. Rotting food stuffed in corners. And the cats, at least 6 of them, only 2 were alive, barely hanging on. The others were not. One was stiff, curled up on the passenger side floor. Another was decomposing inside a crate stuffed behind the back seat. Then we found blood. Not a trace, a lot. A towel soaked completely through was bunched up near the center console. It looked like it had been pressed into a serious wound. My partner picked it up like it might come alive. I asked her what had happened. She looked out from the cruiser window and smiled. Just a little mistake. That's when everything started falling into place, and none of us liked the picture we were seeing. We called it in for a full follow-up, detectives, animal services, mental health support, the whole works. We kept the area secured and continued processing the scene. This wasn't just a spot someone had stopped to rest. It was hers. She'd been living there. We found old receipts in the glove box, some dated 3.5 weeks back. She'd been camped in that location nearly the whole time, long enough to harm someone, long enough to kill someone, and as we found out, she had. The follow-up moved quickly. She wasn't from our county, hadn't had a home in years. A sister down south said she'd gone off her meds the year before and dropped out of contact. Her name had shown up in different towns. Shoplifting, trespassing, erratic behavior. In one report, she'd been found sleeping in a bus station bathroom with a kitten in each pocket. The hit and run we were investigating wasn't even her first. Turns out she had clipped another pedestrian about a week earlier. That one hadn't survived. We didn't realize it was her until we reviewed older traffic footage and spotted the same silver SUV at a different intersection, driving a little slower, but still not stopping. And then there was the body. A man in his mid-50s found face down in the brush, about 100 yards from where her SUV was parked. No clear wounds, no ID. Looked like he'd been out there for several days. She claimed she didn't know him, said maybe he got too close to the humming, whatever that meant. Toxicology later confirmed he died from blunt trauma, likely a fall, maybe a beating. Could have been her, could have been unrelated. We'll never be sure. She was charged with several crimes: vehicular homicide, cruelty to animals, and failing to report a death. But she didn't go straight to jail. She was evaluated, put on treatment, and given a deal that placed her in a facility that could manage her condition. I still think about that night from time to time, about those poor cats, about that awful smell, about the blood. But mostly, I think about how many people just like her are still out there, untethered, slipping through the cracks and getting closer to the edge every day. I didn't wind up living out of my car because I was some burnout or lazy screw-up. I didn't lose everything in a house fire or gamble it all away. What actually happened to me was a lot more quiet, and honestly, kind of dull. I lost my job about 6 months after the pandemic started. The company I worked for went under completely, and the severance check wasn't nearly enough to hold onto my apartment. The landlord gave me 30 days, and once that ran out, I was crashing on couches, then had no couches left to crash on. After that, things started going downhill quickly. But the strange thing was, I wasn't totally broke. Not really. I'd paid off my car the year before everything fell apart, and I still had close to $38,000 in savings, which is more than most people ever have sitting in the bank. I could have spent it all on a year's rent, groceries, and stress, but something about wasting it on rent I couldn't keep up with just didn't feel right. It felt like lighting a match to the rest of what I had left. So I did something else. I turned my car into where I lived, bought some blackout panels, took out the back seat and built a platform for a mattress, added some storage boxes, camp gear, a power adapter, and a couple decent coolers. I figured out how to make it on $20 a day, or even less when I had to tighten things up. I wasn't panhandling or going through trash. I was still mobile, still in control. I kept telling myself, asterisk, this isn't permanent. I'll find something soon. Maybe I'll score one of those remote gigs, try freelancing a bit, live cheap and see the country while I can. Asterisk. To be honest, it really wasn't all bad. The first few months even felt kind of freeing. I used gym memberships to shower, ate better than I did when I worked full-time, and saw more of the US than I ever had before. Fields in Nebraska, canyons in Arizona, foggy streams running through Idaho. I liked being near towns, near other people. But when it came time to sleep, I had to disappear. Dirt paths, dead ends, empty church parking lots after dark. Places people didn't bother looking. That was the secret. Stay nearby, but just out of sight. And it actually worked for a while. That is, until the night behind the strip mall outside some no-name town in western Colorado. That night didn't feel any different from the others, but it's the one that ended up changing everything for me. I'd pulled into town late that afternoon, not even planning to stop long. One of those little towns you forget the moment you leave it, swallowed by trees and hills as soon as you're outside city limits. Their main street couldn't have been more than 2 blocks. There was a corner liquor store, a diner, an old video rental shop that had shut down, a vape place, and then a tired-looking strip mall out near the southern edge. That's where I ended up. I grabbed a couple of cold items at the grocery store, then drove around looking for a place to sleep. Behind the strip mall was ideal. Half the businesses were clearly out of business, and the handful of cars parked in front told me the rest were barely hanging on. I circled behind the building and spotted a short stretch of cracked asphalt tucked between a little patch of brush and skinny trees. Not really a forest, just overgrowth, but enough to keep me hidden from the road. If you weren't looking closely, you'd never see my car tucked in there, shadowed by weeds. I parked and shut off the engine, then slipped into my usual routine. Locked the doors, pulled up the front window shades, scanned the area. Nothing. I ate a sandwich I'd picked up earlier, scrolled through my phone a bit, plugged it into the inverter, changed into some sweatpants, and read a chapter of an old paperback I kept tucked in the side pocket. I remember thinking how still everything felt. Not even the faint hum of cars in the distance. No dogs barking. Not even bugs. That should have been a sign right there. But it didn't register. I think I drifted off around 10, which was normal. Backseat mattress. Pillow under my head. Phone tucked by my leg just in case. Then I woke up to voices. Not yelling, just talking. Sounded like 3 or 4 people, maybe early 20s, walking somewhere out front. At first, it didn't bother me. A dead strip mall like that could easily be a spot for kids to hang out. No big deal. I stayed still, listening. They passed by without stopping. So I rolled over, pulled the blanket up, and shut my eyes again. I don't know how much time passed after that. Could have been 10 minutes, maybe longer. All I know is I woke again to a burst of glass and freezing air. The passenger window, right above my head, shattered inward, showering me in bits of glass. It felt like someone had taken a bat straight to it. My ears rang. My heart felt like it was about to blow out of my chest. I sat up, stunned, trying to figure out what was happening. Blood ran down my neck where the glass had cut me. And then I saw them. Figures blurry at first, lit only by weak moonlight. For maybe 5 or 6. Surrounding the car, not doing anything at first, just standing there, watching. I couldn't make out any faces, and none of them said a word. Then they started to move, slowly, pacing around the car in a loose, strange circle. Some were giggling light and odd, like people who just snapped. It didn't sound right, didn't sound human. It was off. One of them began spinning around, arms flailing in a weird rhythm, stomping like a kid in a tantrum. Then the others joined in, dancing and turning around the car like it was some creepy, messed up ritual. It was so bizarre I couldn't even understand what I was seeing. "Hey, what the hell?" I shouted. "Get away from me. I've got a weapon. I'm calling the cops." I didn't have anything beyond a pocket knife and a dying phone. But I yelled anyway, hoping it would scare them. Didn't. Not one of them flinched. They just kept circling, same weird motion, same awful giggles. I fumbled for my phone, hands slick from sweat and blood. I kept hitting the wrong buttons, kept closing the screen by accident. Couldn't get the damn thing to unlock. And that's when they started rocking the car. A heavy push from the driver's side sent the whole thing lurching forward. My phone fell out of my hands. Another hit, harder this time. The frame tilted, enough to make my stomach drop. I felt the tires creaking under the weight. I scrambled into the front seat, trying to get the keys in, to start the engine, to set off the horn. Anything. "I'm calling 911. I swear to God," I shouted. Another slam. The front tires lifted slightly. I was sure it was going to flip over. I screamed, like full-on screamed. I slammed my hand down on the horn, and it roared out into the night. And then everything stopped. Silence. I sat there, chest pounding, ears still buzzing. I looked up and they were gone. No footsteps, no laughter, not even a sound of anyone running away. Just emptiness. Still and dark. I stayed frozen like that for at least a full minute before I finally moved. I didn't start the car, didn't want to make more noise. I just sat there in that quiet space with dried blood on my skin and broken glass in my clothes, shaking. Eventually, I started the engine and rolled out slowly, headlights off, until I reached the highway. Then I headed straight for the nearest gas station and parked under the brightest floodlight I could find. I didn't care if someone told me to move. I wasn't leaving. Not that night. I didn't sleep. Not even a little. I sat there under those buzzing lights with a half-empty bottle of rubbing alcohol, some paper towels, and a small vacuum I'd bought from a thrift store weeks earlier, cleaning every part of the car. I pulled glass from my blankets, floor mats, the cracks between the seats. I taped up the busted window with layers of cardboard and duct tape until it sealed. My hands didn't stop trembling the whole time. Every little sound, rustling trees, creaking signs, had me jumping. As soon as the sun came up, I found a glass repair shop 2 towns over and booked an appointment for later that day. The guy at the front desk gave me this weird look when I explained what happened. Like he didn't buy it, or maybe he just didn't care. Either way, I paid in cash. I just wanted the window fixed. I really did consider calling the police. I thought hard about it, but what would I even say? A bunch of teenagers scared me in the dark? Nothing was stolen. No one was caught. I had no faces to describe. Even if they got arrested, what then? A court hearing for me? A permanent record for some stupid kid? What if one of them was a dropout or one was a straight-A student trying to impress some idiot friends? I didn't want to be the reason someone's life got wrecked over something stupid. Scary, sure, but stupid. So I just let it go, took the hit, paid for the repair and moved on. But that night definitely left a mark. I stopped traveling after that, found a part-time online job, started saving again. 3 months later, I signed the lease on a small apartment. 1 bedroom, noisy neighbors, carpet that kind of smells like damp towels. But it's mine. It's got 4 walls, a door that locks, a bed I don't have to fold up or tuck away behind a curtain. I don't miss the road anymore, not even a little. But every now and then, I think back to that night and those kids, the strange laughter, the sound of glass shattering over. Neither of us were strangers to the highway. Marcus and I had been doing cross-country drives for nearly 7 years. After he left his job and I gave up my freelance gigs, we bought a used Dodge Ram van and spent a chunk of our savings turning it into a simple mobile home. Nothing flashy, nothing wasted, just a snug mattress, a small burner, a few storage cabinets, solar panels, and a built-in cooler. It wasn't fancy, but it got the job done. It suited us fine. Honestly, we didn't care about showing off. It was just for the open road and for each other. That van gave us the freedom we'd always wanted. No more sketchy motels, no scratchy sheets, no arguments with front desk clerks about early check-in or broken AC units. Just the 2 of us driving back and forth across the country, mostly between Colorado and Maine. Following the seasons, spring through early winter, we'd make our way through the middle of the U.S., drop by our daughter's house in Maine, or visit our nephews in Indiana, Marcus's cousin in Kansas. Our old road atlas was filled with sticky tabs and scribbled margins. We planned everything to the last detail: miles, stops, diners, gas stations, places where we could legally park overnight. The kind of overly prepared travel only older, cautious parents would manage to pull off. We weren't thrill chasers either. No cliffside parking or spooky forest detours. Just low-profile camping, Walmart lots, empty church parking areas, quiet spots near industrial parks on the weekend, places out of sight. No fires, no chairs outside. Most people wouldn't even notice we were there, and we liked it that way. Over time, we'd hit patches of black ice, lost a side mirror to a speeding trucker, even woke up to a raccoon rummaging through an open skylight once. But not once, not a single time, did we ever feel unsafe. That changed in Maine, at a Walmart of all places, a godforsaken parking lot in a town I couldn't name now if I tried. I can still picture how the orange streetlights didn't quite reach the edges of the lot. I can still hear the drone of the rooftop fans. I can still smell the mix of dust, warm metal, and the scent of a storm coming in. The truth is, we didn't ignore warning signs. We just never saw them. We were too used to traveling, too sure of ourselves, too trusting. That night stripped all that away. It started off no different than 100 other nights. We rolled into town maybe 45 minutes before dusk, both worn out from the long drive, somewhere between Springfield and Clear Rock Lake. I think. We weren't running late, but we hoped to get to our daughter's place by late the next day. That meant no side trips to find a perfect spot. No scenic pull-offs or back roads. Just something flat, quiet, and technically legal. The Walmart was right off the main road. One of those older ones, sign all faded, huge lot that looked like it could host a carnival. Honestly, that night it might as well have. When we pulled in, it was nearly empty. A few cars scattered near the garden center. One big truck idling near the loading dock, but not much else. The silence was odd. Marcus even muttered, "Feels like this place got evacuated." I laughed, but the words stuck with me. It did feel off. A store that size should have had more traffic. A few teens hanging around, maybe some RVs parked under lights, but there was nothing. Still, we chalked it up to luck. Less people meant less noise. We parked way in the back behind a few unused cart corrals. Marcus double-checked the side door's locks and yanked the sliding one to make sure it latched. I grabbed my tote bag. He took his shopping list. We walked inside together, holding hands like always. The cold air hit us right away. That place was freezing, and half the fluorescent lights were flickering. Ceiling tiles stained, shelves half-stocked. We gathered what we needed quickly: gallon jugs of water, trail snacks, those tuna kits Marcus liked, and a couple pre-packed sandwiches for dinner. I just wanted to be fast, but Marcus kept checking expiration dates and griping about prices. We were probably in there 30-40 minutes tops. I still have the receipt. It says 8:24 p.m. When we stepped back out, the sky was pitch black and starless. The lot was even emptier. No breeze, no birds. Just the hum of the vents and the low growl from the truck's generator. As soon as we walked out, something didn't sit right. A feeling climbed up my spine like ice water being poured down it. Marcus squeezed my hand, then pointed toward the van. The driver's side door was wide open, not cracked, fully open. I saw someone bent halfway inside, one leg hanging out, both arms deep in our drawers and cabinets. My stomach hit the ground. "Hey!" Marcus shouted, letting go of me and sprinting toward the van. I froze. My hands were shaking as I fumbled for my phone, almost dropping it trying to get it unlocked. The guy turned to look at us, startled but not scared. He stood up slowly. In one arm, he had our lantern. In the other, Marcus's binoculars. My laptop bag was slung over his shoulder. He looked at us like we were intruding. Marcus wasn't a fighter, but he was 6 feet 4 inches and had that Old Navy toughness in him. "Put our stuff down and back away," he said, calm as ever. "You need to leave. Now." The man just smiled, wide and unnatural. His eyes were glassy, distant. He looked like someone who hadn't slept in a week. Clothes dirty, face sunken, long hair curling at the edges. He didn't even look angry. He looked like he wasn't really there. I finally got through to 911, whispering into the phone. Panicked. "Walmart. East Side. Someone's broken into our van. My husband's confronting him. Please, we need help right now." Marcus tried to reach for a blanket the guy had tossed aside, and the man lunged. They both shouted something I couldn't make out, then grappled right there in the open lot. An old man and a wild stranger tangled in a clumsy fight. The lantern shattered on the pavement. The laptop hit the ground, and the man kicked it away before slamming Marcus into the front of the van. Then, like a horror scene, he grabbed Marcus's head and smashed it against the hood. I heard the crack from where I stood. Marcus dropped like a rag doll, slumping to the bumper and collapsing on the pavement. I screamed and finally moved, legs kicking in, but I stopped halfway. The man had jumped into the driver's seat, our seat, and slammed the door shut. I heard the locks pop one by one. He locked himself inside. I ran to Marcus first. Blood trickled from his head, pooling beside his cheek. He was breathing, thank God, but unconscious. I pressed my hand to his face, yelling into the phone, "He's bleeding. He's in our van now. The guy's in our van." Inside, the man was screaming. Not at me or anyone else, just yelling into nothing. "It's mine. You get it? It's mine. They can't have it. They need to go back." He pounded the dash with his fist over and over. I could hear every word through the windshield. He started ripping through the glove box, flinging cables, maps, sunglasses. Then he threw his head back and howled. This long, broken sound that brought a few people out from the store. I backed away, raised my phone, started filming just in case. Headlights swung into the lot, and I nearly collapsed. 2 police cruisers, lights spinning, tires screeching. Felt like rescue. They didn't wait. One cop ran straight to Marcus, checking him. The other headed to the van, hand on his gun, shouting through the cracked window. The man didn't respond, just rocked in the seat, muttering about orbits, gravity, the council, whatever that meant. He was somewhere else completely. "They're trapping me," he kept saying, twitching in the seat. "They made it look like a van, but it's not. It's mine. I'm almost home." I stood there shaking, Marcus's blood all over my fingers. He still hadn't moved. One officer pressed a towel to his head, calling for an ambulance. The other had his gun out, yelling at the man to come out of the van. "Exit now." The man just screamed again. Then everything went silent. Not a word, just heavy breathing, waiting, and then chaos. The guy lunged across the front and started pounding the passenger window with his fists, trying to break out, though he could have just unlocked the door. More units pulled up. I counted 6 officers yelling over each other. A few tried the doors, but he had jammed them shut. He'd blocked them with our cabinets, wedged the cooler, shoved the stove under the wheel. It took 15 minutes and a crowbar to finally drag him out. And when they did, he fought like a wild animal, swinging, clawing, even biting. 4 officers pinned him down. One was shouting that he'd been bitten. I can still hear that cop yelling, "He bit my arm." They cuffed him, hogtied him, and hauled him off laughing like a villain out of a cartoon. Blood on his lips. Marcus pulled through. The CT scan came back okay, but they kept him overnight. We got a hotel room, first time in years. The bed was stiff, TV broken, and I barely slept anyway.